Hello and welcome everyone, a new episode of Money Means Business. The lion's share of this episode is going to be totally dedicated to pharmaceutical and medical industries, particularly localizing this kind of industries. But as usual, we do have plenty of other segments. Right after the short break, we are going to be back with more, and we are going also to have a phone call with an expert to speak about a very important economic topic. All this and more in a special episode of our program, so stay tuned.
In light of the successes witnessed by the Egyptian economy, the Egyptian Stock Exchange plays a pivotal role in supporting economic and social development plans, as the capital markets are one of the main pillars to help the various economic entities in accessing the financing necessary for expansion and growth. Where the Egyptian Stock Exchange has received a great deal of support from the state represented in the regulatory and technological structure of the Egyptian capital market, so that it is able to compete regionally and internationally and support the medium and small enterprises sector through the market of small and medium companies, in addition to providing an attractive environment for investment that guarantees full protection of the rights of investors. Among the gains that the Egyptian Stock Exchange achieved in 2021 is the improvement in the performance of the most prominent Egyptian stock indices, EGX 30 by 10.2%, while the performance of EGX 70 index has improved by 2.6%, and the performance of the EGX 100 index has improved by 5.1%. The market capital also rose by 17.5%, reaching £765 billion in 2021 compared to £651 billion in 2020, while trading values in the main market increased by 45%, reaching about £1 trillion in 2021 compared to £689.6 billion in 2020. The number of new coders also increased by 136%, reaching 59,000 individuals in 2021 compared to 25,000 individuals in 2020, and the value of bond trading increased by 43.9%, reaching £544 billion in 2021 compared to £378 billion in 2020. The value of stock trading increased by 33.3% as it recorded £368 billion in 2021 compared to £276 billion in 2020, and also the value of unrestricted shares trading increased by 165.7%, reaching £93 billion in 2021 compared to £35 billion in 2020. Among the measures that contributed to improving the performance of the Egyptian Stock Exchange was the reduction of the exchange trading expenses, as well as calculating the profit by comparing the acquisition price or the closing price of shares before the start of the application, whichever is higher, compared to the selling price to increase investors' returns. The procedures also include exempting equity investment funds from all taxes on stocks and assigning the fund to calculate and supply them without opening tax files for investors in the documents, as well as facilitating the implementation of services provided to companies listed in the stock exchange. The report stated that sums of about £20 billion were directed from the central bank to support and stimulate the Egyptian Stock Exchange and contribute to the market's recovery. The global financial institutions praised the performance of the stock exchange, as the Oxford Business Group stressed that the reform of the capital market in Egypt is in full swing despite the uncertainty that dominated the various economies of the region during the corona crisis. For its part, Standard & Poor's praised the listing of the Egyptian Stock Exchange since 2018, the latest of which was the Egyptian state-run electronic payments company eFinance, which achieved the largest initial offering on the stock exchange since 2015. In return, Bloomberg confirmed that the new administrative capital is one of the mega projects established by the Egyptian state as part of a broader effort to revitalize the economy. In the same context, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held a meeting to follow up the position of the program for offering a number of government companies on the Egyptian Stock Exchange during the current year 2022. The Prime Minister indicated that the state aims to launch as many of these companies as possible during the current year in light of our plan to work to attract more foreign investments and enhance the confidence of foreign investors in the investment climate. Madbouli stressed the increase in public companies' proposals in order to enhance the role of the stock market, develop and revive the movement of capital flows and trading in the Egyptian Stock Exchange, and raise the market capital to be more attractive to investors. He added that the companies that will be offered on the stock exchange are promising companies that will attract a large segment of investors, similar to the success of the initial offering of e-finance.
Welcome back. To start immediately, as we do have a lot to speak about, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone Mr. Mohammed Maher, the head of the Egyptian Capital Market Association. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Sir, here I'd like just to define or to speak in such details about one of the acquisition deals. The experts in economy knew about it recently, and this is between an United Arab Emirates economic entity and another Egyptian one, and this is not the first time. Another acquisition deal took place just a few months ago or last year, you name it. I'd like just have a brief idea about this and to what extent it is a win-win situation when it comes to our development, to our economy in specific.
Yes, actually, the stock market, the Egyptian stock market is at the moment is at a very attractive level for such acquisitions. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, we had a previous one last year, and this one coming from an Emirati bank to one of the biggest investment banks or the biggest investment bank in Egypt.
Yeah.
With a request to have a minimum of 51% of the investment bank shares. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the value proposed by the Emirati bank, but the sign is very positive that now the market became very attractive for investment. Mm-hmm. Coming from institutional investors at a mega size deal. It's more than $1 billion US dollars value. Mm-hmm. The value of the company. And I believe this action will trigger more actions to come in the coming this year.
Yes. My question, sir, is that is this only a step forward? I mean, is this going to be a message for other investors and other big or giant economic entities to do so, or to prove that our Egyptian economy is that strong and resilient, whether in front of the pandemic repercussions on the whole world, or with our way to deal with sustainable development?
Yes, as I mentioned, it's a trigger for more transactions to come to acquire Egyptian companies, especially with the attractive valuation at the moment. Also, as you said, we had relatively one of the best performers during the Corona epidemic, and we still the economy is still growing at a very good level compared by most of the world economies. We're having this, I'm saying this with regard to the financial sector and many other sectors. In Egypt, we became very attractive for a good target for acquisitions coming from regional institutions and international institutions.
Well, sir, I think that this is such a topic which needs a lot to speak about and in its detail. So we are going to leave you the promise to see here live in the studio to speak and in detail about the acquisition deals and to what extent our economy, our bourse, our stock market is that attractive now to implement such deals on the ground. Well, Dr. Mohammed Maher, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good night. Well, as I said, we do have another very important topic, and in fact, I do have a lot of questions to my dear guest live here in the studio regarding the medical and pharmaceutical industries here in Egypt. And we do have an expert, Dr. Alaa El-Assal, our expert in those two fields, in specific pharmaceutical and medical industries. A very good evening to you, sir, and thank you very much for being with us.
Good evening to you, Nermeen.
This is a very special kind of industry. And to have this idea or this notion that the state is really keen to instill such kinds of industries here in Egypt, it means that we do have the Egyptian citizen as a first priority, the health of the Egyptian citizen as a first priority, knowing well that a healthy citizen, meaning that we are going to have a healthy economy. And let's start, for example, with the EG Pharma, or the City of Medicine of Egypt, which was inaugurated by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi last year. In brief, tell me about your impression when you have seen such a city which is going to be specialized in pharmaceutical industries here in Egypt.
Well, actually, thank you very much for raising such an issue, being one of the most important and relevant issues regarding the growing economy of Egypt, which is an important message that we would like to give to all our viewers and anybody that is following our program tonight. The Egyptopharma, or the Medicine City, that is the commercial name, the Medicine City. I would call it the Pharma City, actually, and I would prefer that it is to be known as Pharma City. Egyptopharma is a giant project, and it is really, it's not a one factory issue, it's a multi-factories, and it's not only just a factory, it's actually many comprehensive solutions. I would say it's a solution to the pharma industry in Egypt, and it is complementing each other to provide a full comprehensive Egyptian solution for the Egyptian patient. And in the same time, the main concept of Egyptopharma is to, first of all, to minimize the expenses so that the end user price, or the price that a patient has to pay, is much less than any of the imported equivalent product. This is number one. Number two, it is actually giving or enhancing the privilege of workmanship in Egypt, so that local workers can have better chance. So we are increasing the employment opportunities in Egypt, just like any developed country, that is enhancing the employment or the power for the laborers and the workers and the pharmacists to.
And we do have the human cadres who can run such an institution. We do have the specialized cadres, and empowering women, empowering youth is one also of the priorities of our political leadership. But sir, you are going to find people, or the other side of the coin, speaking about 160 pharmaceutical factories here in Egypt. You would find someone who would say, why I would not promote or help or support such industry, such factories, and not to go to start from scratch with a city of medicine. How I can explain or justify this?
Well, actually, a number, 160, which you mentioned, is just a number. Let me give you an example to compare, because we have to compare apples to apples. We cannot compare apples to oranges. So let me give you an example, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's not the 160 or 150. How much these 150 factories are producing, how many people they are employing, what's the end product.
Yep.
What is the power that we can do for export out of these 150 factories that are locally here. That will, I will try to give you as an example.
Sure.
For your information, there are 7 factories, 7 pharma factories in Jordan. And you know Jordan is a fellow Arabian country which we do support. But to your surprise, I'm sure that you will be surprised knowing that the export out of these 7 factories are more than the export that we are yielding here from out of these 150 factories.
Great.
The export.
Yeah.
But
fulfill the needs of our local market. It's 110 million people, and population is another issue and another factor, I think, behind the eagerness or the keenness of the state to build such pharmaceutical entity, let's say, pharmaceutical city, to fill the gap, because we accepted the fact that there is a gap which should be fulfilled, and this is the right way to solve a problem. First, to recognize that there is a problem.
Yes. Well, to pinpoint, you've got a point that you pinpoint the problems so that we can solve them, and this is a very usual way to solve a problem, to realize that there is a problem. And that's good that we are now realizing what future that we are looking for. But actually, I would support the point you are talking about, and this gives me a privilege in promoting the local industry in the medical field and in the pharmaceutical field in Egypt, because we have a huge local demand.
Yeah.
So in any entity that is producing a product, the main issue of the product or the main issue of the investors or stakeholders, that they were looking for a market, and they spend enormous amount of money to create a market, and that takes a lot of their finance and budget so that they can promote their products.
And EG Pharma, or the Pharma City,
Pharma City is called Egypto Pharma.
Yeah,
yes.
Egypto Pharma.
But
it started huge.
It is huge. We
started
need,
huge.
Because the need is huge. We are still in need of even more. And by the way, you have only seen phase 1. We still have phase 2 and phase 3 in Egypto Pharma. So we have the market here. The local population, we are exceeding 110 million. And our population, and this needs a special talk about the population explosion. I would say it a population explosion that we are facing. Because our average of population, our increase of population on annual basis is a
monster swallowing all the revenues of development,
actually,
if we may say so. But what we are trying to do is to cope with the issue and to solve the problem while we are going on with the awareness campaigns, to tell the people to what extent this is a real danger. But I'd like you, sir, to elaborate on the benefits or the fruits we are going to harvest, minimizing or reducing the costs of the medications, the quality, the job opportunities, taking into consideration that, as we were speaking before, that the oncology medicines, for example, are very expensive and we import them. This is not going to be the case, inshallah. Give me your idea or your concept about what's going to be the image after we have the Pharma City in full capacity.
Well, I would be looking forward to witness that, actually, because it's going to be a breakthrough in Egypt. As I said, we are enhancing the employment opportunities in Egypt, but in the same time we are minimizing the expenditure or the foreign currency, because when you import, you still have to pay a lot of foreign currency, and that, of course, is against any economy prosperity. So if we minimize our expenditure in importing products, and we are producing it locally, and in the next phase we are having the raw materials being manufactured here in Egypt. So we don't have even to import the raw materials.
So putting an end to monopoly.
Of course, and then again, I wouldn't say it is only. It's not only a matter of finance or a matter of revenues. It's a matter of. I would say it is a strategic purpose, and I think the political administration, our political administration, is putting this on their priorities. We would like to have a self-sufficient local market, so that we do not have to be in need to import a product to supply a need. You have seen what has happened in the COVID
This
era.
was my common question.
So I'll wait for your question.
Pre and post-COVID, it's not going to be the same. And maybe, you know, some people would say that COVID is a blessing, not a curse, because it taught us a lot, taught humanity a lot, taught the planet a lot. I mean, among the lessons we learned from this crisis is to take into consideration that maybe this is the start of the virus's era, so we should get ready. What we are doing here in Egypt is getting ready.
Yes, and we are learning from even previous mistakes. I wouldn't say current mistakes, but we are learning from previous mistakes that has happened in decades and decades. So we are improving this, and I think this is my personal opinion. The way the government and the current administration have handled the COVID situation was one of the best in the whole world. And I would say in few months after the spread of the pandemic, it started as an epidemic, and then it moved into being a pandemic. We started quickly, and we have acted quickly, and we started to manufacture the vaccine locally. It took us few months, of course, to almost a year to start into active production of this, because as I said, this is a strategic product. Just imagine, I'm imagining hypothetically being someone who have been living in Egypt and loves, I would say, this country, then I wouldn't put my country into a risk that some supplier would, for a reason or another, whether it's political or economical or something, that he would cut me off for a reason or another. We are liable to that for any reason. I wouldn't put my people, I wouldn't put a risk into citizens. And I think this is one of the main concepts that made the highest level of the current administration move. And I think we are moving very fast into this. We are producing these products locally so that we will have stability. The prices are going down, and we are giving a huge opportunity for investors. And this is the theme of your program.
Amen to that, and taking into consideration that we do not tolerate that the quality would be less than the other alternatives of abroad. True?
This is very true. And we have all the quality of the pharmaceutical and medical products are being monitored by the Egyptian Ministry of Health, and there is a special department for that. And just for info, for anyone that is watching our program today, all the products in Egypt has to be FDA approved or CE approved. So the Egyptian standard in certain extents, it's not even up to the European or the American standards, but in some issues it's even higher than that. So some prerequisites sometimes are required here for the ISOs and for the approvals for the Egyptian medications are even sometimes higher than what is requested in overseas. And anyone working in the drug, in the pharmaceutical industry or the medical industries would complain to you.
We are going to speak about the differentiation, how to differentiate between pharmaceutical industries and medical industries, because this is another issue. But before going into this, sir, you mentioned a very important point, which is investing in this field. Because we are trying to explore new horizons of investment in general, whether for Egyptian, Arab, or even foreign investors. To what extent do you see now that pharmaceutical industries should be considered as one of the attractive fields for investors?
Well, I think anyone watching us today, I think we will have a great impact on their opinion into joining forces, because actually we have being so advanced in the pharmaceutical industries in Egypt at this point of time. Let us looking for strategic partners. We call them strategic partners. We don't call them just investors. It's not only somebody who's buying shares on a pharmaceutical company or acquiring a pharmaceutical company.
I like the word strategic partners. This is such a description which should be taken into consideration whenever we're speaking about our partners in such a field, sir.
Right.
Very well said.
Yes, yes. So we are looking for strategic partners. We would like them, it's not only to invest or to put money. We would like to involve them to come and see their investment on the real grounds and to see the privilege of being in Egypt. And I would just leave a small part when we talk about the medical products.
Go ahead.
Okay,
yes,
fine.
To differentiate between pharmaceutical industries and medical industries, because they look very much similar, but there is some differences.
Yes, well, actually, there is a lot of differences between both. It's not pharmaceuticals is drugs. This is the pills that a patient or a person that would take to treat a disease. The medical industry is a little bit different, and it's not regarding the drug itself. It's regarding the things that you would use in a hospital. It's widely known as disposables or medical disposables. And just like the syringes, and
plastic
the tracheal
products, disposable plastic products,
exactly.
more or less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a huge market.
Sure.
And I think this is a new expansion to the medical industry in Egypt, and this is what.
But they are complementary to each other. I mean, how I can have an injection without a syringe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, there are so many factories that are manufacturing syringes in Egypt. There's so many of them.
One of the examples, but there are other products which we should take into consideration instead of importing them.
Right, we are still importing syringes. Even our production is not even enough. And for your information, this field is being advanced in very peculiar way, and advancing so fast. But now the new era, or the new way of doing syringes, we are trying to let them be to make sure that it is a single-time use. So what we have done, or what the technology has done, is the one-time use syringe. We are facing a problem all over the world. Some of them are here in Egypt, regarding the reusage of the syringe after it has been used or disposed. Then some people they would take them and reuse them.
Some criminals.
Yeah, I would say the criminals.
Criminals.
Yes, exactly. So they started manufacturing things that destroys the needle and destroys the plunger. For your information,
Medical wastes.
yes, it goes to medical waste,
yeah.
but it is being manipulated in a different way. But for your information, out of these so many tens of manufacturers manufacturing syringes in Egypt, it's only 2 factories that are producing the self-destructive syringes. Now all over the world they are using a self-destructive syringe. That a syringe that you use, you cannot use again.
Yeah.
You cannot use again. Whether it's the plunger does not go out, or the needle itself is being destroyed. So it's only 2 factories in Egypt that are doing this, and I think this is in the plan to have these peculiar products in Egypt. Now, for your information, our importation of the medical products is about £2 billion every year, and we are still investing a lot of money and transferring a lot of foreign currency to import these products. Up until this moment, we do not have a solid local manufacturer of the raw medical plastic We are
So
still.
the raw material now should be a first priority, or should be on top of the list of what we think to promote this kind of industry. True?
Yes, very true. I would strongly recommend that. And as I said, this is a strategic commodity, because again, if something happens,
Yeah.
and the supply of the medical plastic, the raw material for the medical plastic has stopped coming from overseas, then we have a problem here. How can we operate for the current medical disposable
Professor,
factories?
you are giving us such a panoramic view, and we are going to continue what we have started, but right after the short break, we are going to be back.
During its meeting last Thursday, the Council of Ministers approved a package of decisions regarding increasing the minimum wage for state employees and workers as of next July 1st, as well as approving financial allocations for new appointments in the health and education sectors based on what was presented by Dr. Mohammed Maït, Minister of Finance. During the meeting, the Council of Ministers agreed to amend the values of the minimum total wage for employees and workers of state agencies, public service and economic bodies as of July 1st, 2022, in addition to the entitlement of the employee or worker to a supplementary incentive representing the difference between the total wage and the minimum wage stipulated in draft resolution. The Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Engineer Tariq Al-Mullah, announced that during the fiscal year 2022-2023, Egypt is expected to witness the drilling of 13 exploration wells in the Mediterranean and Delta, the conclusion of 3 agreements to search for gas, and the implementation of 5 projects for the development and production of gas to put 33 wells on a map. Production that adds 415 million cubic feet of gas and 17.2 thousand barrels of condensate. The minister added that the volume of research, development, and production investments amounted to $900 million, bringing the total investments during the current and next 2 years to more than $1.6 billion. The Arab Organization for Industrialization announced the installation of the first machine in the Middle East and the 8th in the world to operate and form metals at the CMAF factory of the Arab Organization for Industrialization, which operates in a fully digital control system with the latest international technology on the land of Egypt. The intensive preparations at the factory included preparing the base on which the machine will be installed, and the engineers of the CMAF factory are scheduled to undergo training by the German company's experts on how to operate the machine. A consortium of major regional companies submitted a proposal to the Egyptian government, including the establishment of a seawater desalination plant that would produce 1 million cubic meters per day. Dr. Mustafa Madbouli received the chairman of the 2 companies' boards to discuss areas of cooperation in the Egyptian market, declaring his welcome to the partnership proposal submitted by the alliance of the 2 companies to contribute to the implementation of the government's strategy to desalinate seawater using renewable energy. The Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Engineer Tariq Al-Mullah, revealed that work is currently underway to implement the first approved gold refinery in the Marsa Alam region in the Eastern Desert. Among several gold-related projects, Egypt aims to maximize the benefit from the added value of gold resources. The minister added that Egypt has other mines other than the Sukkari mine, such as the Golden Triangle project in Upper Egypt. The Deputy Executive Director of the Export Council for Food Industries said that the Egyptian food industry sector exports $4.1 billion, representing 14% of the total Egyptian non-oil exports. He stressed that the United States of America is the third largest importer of Egyptian processed food in the world in 2021, with a value of $223 million, representing 5.4% of the total Egyptian food exports, achieving an increase of 23% compared to the exports of 2020 that amounted to $181 million. Adding that the most important exported commodities are medicinal and aromatic plants with a value of $39 million, representing 18% frozen vegetables with a value of $26 million, representing 12% prepared vegetables and canned goods with a value of $23 million, representing 10%, and frozen strawberries with a value of $15 million, representing 7% of total exports. The American site Business Insider nominated Egypt in its list of the top 10 investment destinations in the African continent. The list of the American site included Egypt, along with the countries of Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, Ghana, Angola, and Côte d'Ivoire. The American website report stated that Egypt's economic growth rate increased by 9.8% in the first quarter of the 2021-2022 fiscal year, stressing that these statistics also show that Egypt is one of the richest African countries in terms of GDP for the year 2021, as it has the second highest GDP in Africa with $394 billion. The Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation confirmed that 12 new facilities were approved to export fish and crustaceans to the countries of the Eurasian Union, bringing the total number of Egyptian facilities approved for exporting fish to the Eurasian Union, 20 Egyptian facilities for exporting fish. It is worth noting that Egypt has achieved self-sufficiency in fish by producing about 2 million tons, 97% of which is from fish farming, which was established during the past 7 years, and 20% from the natural fisheries from the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, the Nile River, and lakes owned by Egypt, while imports are imported about 3% of cold water fish.
Welcome back. We are still very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio Dr. Ali El-Assal, our expert in medical and pharmaceutical industries. Sir, we were just speaking just before events of the week report we had about medical industries, and to what extent it's really now a priority or should be a strategic priority, because with overpopulation we should, and this is a state strategy to fill any gap for the local market, to have a sufficient way to supply the local market with all what it needs regarding the vital products like the medical products. How we can attract more investors to invest in such a field, and how this can be one of the things which automatically attract more and more. I mean, how should be the first push?
Well, I'll tell you, you tackled also a very important issue, I would say, as equivalent as the drug or the pharma industry in Egypt. There is a huge demand in Egypt for the medical consumables or the medical disposables. The need is there, and that's why I would say to investors all over the world, whether in the Western world or in the Eastern world or in the Arab world, the market is here. So we are alleviating one of the major problems for any producing or any factory or any manufacturer, that he is looking for a market. Now the market is here. And because, as you just said, we are having an increased population. Our average rate now is between 2.5 to 2.7%, which is more than
Huge.
a double.
Yeah.
Which is more than a double
Yeah.
the international standard. The universal standard is around 1%.
Let me put my question in other words, sir. How we can learn from other countries' experience in that? Because of course there are heavyweight names when it comes to that field. Vaya, would you please fill in the gap?
Yeah, I would tell you the story from the very beginning in a very short.
Yeah.
That and I would like, I do not want to name countries or whatever, but there has been countries that they were not existent in the medical field when we started that business long time back. But now, I mean, we were here and they were here. But now we are here and they are there.
Okay.
So actually, we need to pick up in this field for strategic reasons and for national security reasons. And that's why I had developed the project, just like Gyptopharma for medicines, or Silo Food for nationally produced food. We have developed it's of course a dream that I think it will come true with the current administration, and I call it the Nile Health Project. It's actually taking care of this part, which is the medical industry, producing disposables and consumables in huge product. It is being produced in here, but of course it's not enough. And as I said, we are importing products more than 2 billion Egyptian pounds. We could save this. We could have a larger employment scale in Egypt, and that will enhance the employment opportunities in
And to what
Egypt.
extent the private sector can help in that?
The private sector is really what we are looking for to perform a strategic partnership.
This exactly what I wanted to hear. How I can have this system, this symphony, to have, of course, the role of the country, the role of the state, the public sector, and in the same time giving the private sector the whole chance to have a lion's share, or at least to have a big part of the cake.
Yes, well, actually, the way you are phrasing your questions is really peculiar in a way that it is very comprehensive, and I would think that you are anticipating my answer. But if we have a consortium, and this is just like what happened in Gyptopharma with the country, with the entity of the government, and supervised by the highest rank in the current administration, to the extent that the president himself has attended the inauguration of this project. I would like to do the same for the medical product, for the medical products, and I would like to address investors all over the world that we are giving them a huge opportunity here to grow their money. The profit share here is beyond what they could expect. We have a lot of potential in here. I would give you a tip, or I would give them a tip all over the world, is we have a privilege here, even when you participate in a tender, that you have a premium and a privilege for the Egyptian made product. If you have a product made in Egypt, then you get a premium between 10 and 15%, meaning to let everybody understand, even if the Egyptian product is a little bit more expensive than a foreign product, they will give a privilege within this parameter. And this is, of course, a huge advantage to the locally manufactured product. If you have the country or the current administration or the government as your partner, and you have the market, and you have the infrastructure.
Paradise on earth.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you have the customer waiting for you.
Yeah.
Now, beside the local customer,
And this is a chronic customer.
Yeah.
Well,
I wouldn't say that.
I would say that instead of you. It seems that we should have here doctors with business mentality and businessmen with medical mentality, just as you are. Well,
thank you. Thank you for
unfortunately,
that.
sir, we're running out of time, but I really enjoyed our discussions. We are going to leave you, sir, with a promise to see you again in more episodes of Money Means Business. Thank you very much. We were very much delighted to have with us Dr. Ala El-Assal, our expert when it comes to medical and pharmaceutical industries. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you very much, Nermeen. See you.
Well, by this we come to the end of this episode. On behalf of my dear colleagues Nermeen Nazim, Kamel Ali, Assam Hassan and myself, Nermeen Abdurrahman, many thanks for watching. Stay tuned only on Nile TV International.